we're here again. Welcome to Parami's YouTube series, part of our You Can Do Anything campaign. This year, we're really focusing on bringing valuable conversations to you about the things that you care about. We were talking about imposter syndrome, how to build confidence, how to tell our own story. These are great topics that we are discussing in part of this first set of series. And today we have an inspiration story, someone who has decided to go for it, to go see and outlive their dreams. So Heather, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. So before we get started in this conversation of how you're living your dream, tell us a little bit about who you are and what is it that you do?
Well, my name is Heather Marie Shop KC. With Heather Marie is kind of my online tag. Most people know me as Heather Marie. I am a mother of 3 daughters, and I have been self-employed, so to speak, for the last 13 years. So that's currently, I am a real estate agent. I've been a real estate agent in Kansas City since 2020. So it's been a wild blast coming up on 4 years. In addition to that, I also substitute teach. I'm a firm believer, as cliche as it is, children are quite literally the future. So investing in youth is something else important to me.
Yes. So we invited you, Heather, because you've been a serial entrepreneur, right? You're doing real estate right now. You've done a lot of other things in your life, and we're going to be able to talk about those things. But right now, in the present time, why real estate, and what do you enjoy about it?
Well, it was so I as I mentioned, I've got 3 girls, and I went through a life change. I went from being a co-parent in a home to a single mom. And at that time, we had developed a business, RPM Painting, and as a family, we were building that business. And whenever we decided to part ways, I had to pretty rapidly get into, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to sustain my household on my own? And originally I got my property and casualty insurance license, and a friend of mine was like, hey, you should try real estate. I think it would be a good fit for you, which I will say, having people around you that believe in you and lift you up is critical and priceless, because it was not on my radar, but it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. Real estate is a very personal, very intimate transaction, and everything is on the table. And so being able to walk with families, and the number of people that just don't even think they can buy a home, but then being able to walk through and represent young families, old families, new families, first-time home buyers, retirement buyers, people selling their family home, being able to walk through and really be a trusted confidant in that process is so fulfilling. I completely did not expect or I underestimated the value of being able to walk with people in that process.
Yeah. So real estate now, other businesses before. What made you overall just kind of want to be your own boss? Why did you decide to go for that?
So I was raised by 2 working parents. I was born in 83, I'm 40 years old. And so I grew up in home, like my parents divorced whenever I was young, but even before that, both of my parents had to work full time. So I was raised growing up knowing that I was going to have to work. That's how it works. You have to have a job, you have to provide income, you have to be able to sustain your home. And so I did that. I worked when I was pregnant with my first daughter. I was pregnant with my second daughter. I was working 2 jobs and going to business school. At the time when I was going to school, I kind of had this aspiration of, I need to make X amount of dollars to be able to provide this lifestyle for my family. And I was outside of the home all the time. My oldest daughter, Veronica, who's about to be 19. Veronica's a very, very beautiful name, by the way. She saw me 2 hours in the morning, about an hour in the middle of the day when I picked her up from daycare and took her over to the next care location. By the time my second daughter was born, I was like, I cannot work 2 jobs. I can't afford daycare for 2 children that many hours a day. It genuinely did not make financial sense. So I had to bring it down to 1 job, still daycare, and it was hard. It was a very, very hard thing. Eventually reaching the point where I'm trying to do it all. My grandma actually moved in with me. And I cared for my grandma, what ended up being her last 5 years of life. But in that year, I was able to stay home with my girls. And so she moved in, and that afforded me the opportunity to be at home with my daughters and go to school. That reality changed my life. Prior to that, I was very comfortable with being gone 10 hours a day because it's what I had to do. And I was not open to the idea that it could be a different way. being able to be home with them, I was like, I can't go back. I can't go back to working and being gone 10 hours a day. What do I do now? And so I had been working on my business degree. I had helped form RPM Painting, painting business that their dad still owns and operates and is successful with today. And I'm like, I can do this. I need to invest in business for me. And so when my grandma did pass away, that was really kind of the turning point, and that's kind of when I would say the serial entrepreneurship component of it started, where it's like, what do I want to do, and really just kind of opened myself up to being able to get into any of it.
Get into do it.
Yeah.
So funny you mentioned your grandmother, and we've been having discussions with multiple women for this series, and the idea of your support system or your people, your tribe constantly comes up. So no surprise it came up here that it's like it was kind of a blessing in disguise, it sounds like, right? You're like, okay, I'll care for my grandmother, but also then you suddenly had support in your home.
Yes. And I think, women bring something valuable to the table. I think human connection is one of the most important components of a life experience. And part of what is so special about my tribe and my village, which I'll be completely honest, extends my grandmother, my sister. We have a strong group of women, and I live in Belton, and we have a strong group of women that we lean on each other very strong. We go out of our way to love one another and to show up for one another. And we're a wide range of ages.
Yeah.
But that's what's beautiful about it, is it's such a genuine space. Without that, we've got, heat's gone out recently, car trouble, anything that you could think of, help watch kids, help show up. I've taken friends' kids to the hospital before. They've done the same for me. So yes, the village component is, I don't know that I would be able to do what I do right now without my ongoing village. Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, you're not alone. If you are struggling, you're not alone. We all struggle, but key to have your support system, whether that's abuelita or grandma, mom, a sister, neighbor, anyone. And what I'm hearing you say is that this support system, it's intentional, right?
Yes.
I think that when we fall, especially those that are mothers, and especially those that are single mothers like you and I, it's easy to get caught up in the responsibilities and lose sight of what you need to pour back into your own cup.
Yes.
And that's your people and that's your tribe. So what I'm hearing you say is, this can't be something that if I have time, I'll do it. You have to intentionally pour onto your tribe or your group, right?
Yes. The reality is in life, you do very little alone. We do very little alone. So take care of, I guess one of the easiest phrases, I use my things, like I have two phones, one for business and one for home, and they're both shattered on the back. I use my things. Invest in people, take care of people. And that philosophy has proven to be the biggest asset in my entrepreneurial journey. When Tiffany and I launched Sweet Tea, we had an all-woman staff. It was a concierge service. So Sweet Tea was this incredible glamping experience. But our concierge service, they came out, and these are, again, all women. They're the ones that were starting the fires. They were running the generators. We were chopping wood. We were, you name it. It was an incredible thing. But it was our tribe that made it work. Tiffany and I, as much as we loved and our passion for the business would have sustained it in my heart, the model itself would not have functioned without that group of women making it happen and showing up every day. And so that investment in knowing your village, and then you end up in that situation where it's like, hey, I need, and they're like, I got you, and that has to be reciprocal, and so showing up is a lot of it. And then when you start having people show up for you in return,
it's magical. Yes.
Whenever you're ready, you can.
That's a perfect segue to my next question.
Okay.
So you've done different ventures. Sweet Tea, you're a real estate agent now. For those of watching that might be thinking, I already own a business and I want to do this other thing, right? Because that's what happens with creatives is we have one idea and then we have another. So for those that might be already managing a venture and then trying to do the other thing, what advice do you have for anyone trying to manage multiple business or considering going into another business idea?
So there's a book called Essentialism, and I will say that there's a lot of value to hyper-focus. So before even considering an additional venture, making sure that you've invested in the venture that you're working on and that it is at a place where if you are to take some time, energy, or attention away from it, that it can sustain, that you have people in the right positions, the right people in the right positions, and that model can function while you are able to divert some attention. And if you need help getting to those places, I would be more than happy to sit and look at your business model with you and see what we can do to help you get to that place, because that is absolutely step one. One of the worst things one of the worst things that we could do, right, is take something that is providing for our families and providing for our current way of life and then disable it, just knock one of the legs off of it and be like, I'm going to use this leg to start over here. So that's step one, is just making sure that you're at a place where you can do that. But the reality is that, one, the village, okay, so you have the people around you that can help you with that transition, that you can spitball the ideas with, that can help fill in small gaps here and there as you transition. So having the right people around you to support you in that. But as far as the other side of it, it's courage. Courage cannot exist without the presence of fear. And so if you're at a place where you're like, no, like this is a well-oiled machine, I could absolutely dedicate time, energy, and attention to something else, and I've had this passion that I want to get started on, do it. Confront the fear, use your courage as that first launching point. And then getting at that point when you're like, okay, I'm going to actually take the steps, commit to it. It has to be something that has the same amount of passion as that first venture had, right? So you are only going to get out what you put in. So if you're not at a place where you can put in, you're not ready yet. If you're on the verge of wanting to be able to start that second venture, courage. Take courage.
So courage, this idea of just going for it, right? Make sure you feel prepared, making sure that you kind of have your ducks in a row, your first venture. Well, for those listening, maybe no ventures yet, or multiple ventures, whatever stage of life the women watching might be, you might be in your life. What advice do you have? How do you track it all, especially with motherhood and like embedded in here? What advice do you have for anyone who's trying to figure out how to manage it all?
My number one piece of advice, honestly, to any woman is to trust yourself first and foremost. So if it's in your heart, you were meant to do it, trust yourself. And that will always guide you. No matter what decision you are in front of, you can close your eyes and you will be able to feel a direction and trust yourself. And even if it's like, nobody believes in me, nobody else sees this idea, that's okay. And then the second part of how to do it is to get really comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. So when you are confronted with that person that's a naysayer and says that idea isn't going to work, or how are you going to bring in another loaf of bread in the saturated market, there's a million ways to talk yourself out of taking action. And so at that point, get comfortable with those uncomfortable conversations. Is there legitimacy to these concerns? Have I really considered the financial ramifications? What is it going to take to get it off the ground? Be comfortable with those uncomfortable conversations. There's nothing in business that you should shy away or hide from. You want to know all of it inside and out. And the only way to do that is to get comfortable with those really uncomfortable situations. And especially as a woman in business, that can look like a lot of different things. Sometimes you will have, unfortunately, inappropriate scenarios. When you get into business, there will be times that you're sitting at a table and maybe you are the only woman at that table. So being able to remain calm, kindness is a legitimate superpower. So being able to maintain your composure and very directly have very serious conversations where you are comfortable with that uncomfortable component, that will get you so far in the realm of business. And it will eliminate a lot of those kind of superfluous obstacles, those things that people kind of dance around because they're not comfortable talking about. Mm-hmm. When you're able to address those things, you cut through so much and you're able to progress in such a more authentic and efficient way, because you're not wasting time placating. You're not wasting time doing the dance and the rigmarole. It's the rigmarole. It is okay to be direct as a woman, and it is valuable to be able to have those hard conversations and have them up front if possible.
I love that. And I think we didn't talk about this or plan for this as part of this discussion, but it's just coming up for me. I think part of what you said of courage and being able to have uncomfortable conversations also includes asking questions. Yes. When you don't know, many times it's you don't know and other people in the room don't know either, but no one's asking the questions. And so I've been in places where, yes, I've been uncomfortable and I've dared to ask the question. And then later someone will say, thanks for asking that question, because I was on the fence about that too. Or it's been other scenarios where I'm so intimidated by the room that I don't ask my questions and I'm hoping someone else does. So asking questions, knowing you're not going to know everything starting off in your business because maybe you haven't done it before, right? And so having the courage and having the ability to be uncomfortable enough to say, hey, I don't know that. Can you please explain? Would you agree that
I would
that's...
100% agree. And always remember that these are just other regular people. They're just other regular people. So when you're in that space and you feel an intimidation factor or maybe some imposter syndrome kind of thing is coming in, recognize these are just other regular people. And so whether they do know or do know the answer or they also don't know the answer, I always find it interesting when somebody engages and if somebody like comments on what I'm wearing in kind of a mocking tone or is just I don't know, kind of negatively addressing something. I've gotten very comfortable with this. Like, I find it interesting that you are so invested in that aspect of me. Like,
Yeah.
that's a very interesting thing. So when you recognize like these are all just regular people, it takes away all of the power of that intimidation. It takes I mean, I hate to be like, don't care what anybody thinks about you, but really like who cares what anybody thinks about you? Your venture and your goal is here, and you're willing to address any possible thing between you and that goal. Sometimes those things are going to be uncomfortable things, and your willingness to address those things is what's going to get you there.
Oh my gosh, such a profound conversation. Heather, thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom with us. This acquired experience, you're talking about years worth of experience, right? This is why we have these chats, because these are women doing the thing and have learned along the process, probably through a lot of pains and gains throughout this process. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Lastly, how do people find you? How can people connect with you? How can they find you, whether they're in Kansas City or beyond?
Well, I appreciate that opportunity very much. I am Heather Shop KC with Heather Marie on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. And then you can also reach me at heather@shopkc.homes, HOMES, and 816-877-5707. Any of your real estate needs, or just if you want some guidance, you want to chat about business, I am here for you. So thank you very much. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I love being a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Keep watching for more episodes on these types of discussions, guidance. Share it with someone who might need to hear Heather's story. Thank you for watching.